Thank you for joining Jennifer Schaus and Associates in our 2019 Webinar Wednesday series. We are coming to you live from downtown Washington, D.C. Our webinars are held every Wednesday, and you can find the upcoming schedule on our website. Past webinars and all recordings are also on our website and on our YouTube channel, along with over 160 other recordings on federal contracting topics. All are complimentary. If you have questions for our speaker today, you can contact him directly with the contact information you see on your last slide. All right, just a little bit about us. We are a Washington, D.C.-based firm and provide services for federal contractors. This ranges from market analysis reports to proposal writing and post-award compliance. More information is on our website, so please visit us. And these are just a couple of upcoming events. You can find more information on our website or on the links on the screen. And we now offer advertising in our newsletter and in our webinars, so please contact me with the email on your screen if you want more information. And our webinar today is sponsored by AccuTrack, and here's a short message from them.
AccuTrack Consulting and Accounting Services is an 8A WOSB CPA firm committed to supporting entities sustain growth in government contracting. Our outstanding DCAA accounting solutions reduce audit risk, improve cash flows, and give you peace of mind. Contact us today to learn how we can enhance your DCAA accounting efforts.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Our speaker today is Stephen Vito from Entrepreneurial Government. Thank you for joining us today, Stephen. We are going to be covering video, a government contractor's best messaging tool. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Mallory. I appreciate it. And of course, thank you to you and to Jennifer Schaus for having me be on this webinar today. I really enjoy it. And I am talking about something I feel pretty passionate about. And hopefully this short little, 15, 20-minute presentation will make everybody in the audience passionate about the potential of video and why I really think it should be part of everyone's marketing toolkit. So with that, let's get right to it. Mallory, if you could just put the next slide up. Nope, that's not okay. So here's what we're going to be discussing today. One is why even use video in your marketing. And by the way, I'm going to be presenting some statistics on this. And it's not just going to be touchy-feely. This has been measured and it's proven. So video works. Things you may want to think about before you just jump into video. And again, I'm a big believer in marketing that sometimes jumping in ain't a bad idea because you could analyze something to death and it'll just paralyze you. But there are some things you have to keep in mind. And then we're going to talk about the types of video that you may want to think about, some quality resources on video. And I would encourage you and everybody to do some homework. There's plenty of best practices out there on both YouTube or any of the social media sites. And then some final thoughts that you may want to think about. Okay, next slide, please. So why even use video? So again, I'm one of these people that, a little bit you have to go by touchy-feely, but a little bit you have to go by statistics. And so today I'm going to be talking about some statistics. So Mallory, if you can put the next slide up there. This is from Forbes magazine, by the way. And I think this will hopefully strike home the message on why video is important. So this is a couple of years old, but still very valid. This is, again, from Forbes magazine. Video is now a marketing necessity. That's my underline, by the way. To be seen and heard and to build your recognition and trust factor, simple text and image do not work anymore. Some interesting stats on the use of video in marketing. Online video now accounts for 50% of all mobile traffic. And by the way, that was 2 years ago. I would say that percentage is even higher today. According to a report published by Forrester, including video in an email leads to a whopping 200 to 300% increase in click-through rates. On Facebook, video posts have 135% greater organic reach than photo posts. And by the way, And both photo posts and video posts dwarf, text posts. So those statistics are a couple of years old, but again, if you want to, look at statistics today, I bet it's even better. All right, next slide, please, Mallory. All right, so let's talk about a recent study. If you need more convincing on this, by the way, HubSpot, which I'm sure a lot of you know about. HubSpot is a piece of software that enables you to just be that much more intelligent about how your website is used and how you can deliver content and so forth. But they say, HubSpot says, using video on landing pages will increase conversions by 86%. They also say video content is 50 times more likely to drive organic search results than plain text. And including a video in a post increases organic traffic by 157%. And ComScore did a study not too long ago, and I want to say it was an enormous percentage increase in traffic from Google searches if you have video on your website. So Google searches favor video. Okay, next slide, please. Here's one more bit of information. This is a study I really enjoy. It comes out every year. It's done by Market Connections. And this study analyzes how federal executives look at media. And this is not only social media, but it's also traditional media. And it's a really involved study, and it's really worth looking at. You could go to Market Connections. You can just Google them. They have a summary on their website. You can certainly purchase the entire study and do some really interesting crosstabs. But if you just want to see the highlights, that's available. And what I love about this study is this particular slide. It shows that online social media sites, how they're utilized by federal executives. Now, this is not commercial, non-government people. These are people in the federal government. Facebook, and if we just look at that, you can see that from 2015, 64% used Facebook, went down to 62%, up to 71%, and then 74%. But look at YouTube. YouTube, which is obviously a video primarily, not exclusively, primarily a video site. YouTube is neck and neck with Facebook, and it dwarfs LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter on usage among federal executives. So, that's important to keep note of. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so hopefully I've convinced you that video is getting more attention. It's more engaging to the viewers. You're going to get a better click-through rate. Everything positive, right? But how do you do it? So before you spend money, and it can get expensive, but doesn't have to be. But before you go out and spend some money, here are some questions you should really be asking yourself is, define success. So at the end of the day, after you post your video, if you post it on your website, if you put it links from your newsletter and whatever else you do with it, what are you trying to achieve? And don't make it a long objective. I would say probably just a 7-8 word objective. Then, how will you measure success? Is it web traffic to your website? Is it click-through rates? Is it the average time on your website? The bounce rate? Is it downloads from the content that you already have on your website? So think through how you want to measure this. And please, when you're measuring anything in marketing, please, please, please do not say you're going to measure it by revenue. People who make those claims, I would say probably don't really understand. Not probably, they do not understand marketing or marketing communications. And as a result, they're not going to really be doing any. So again, think what is your success and how you want to measure it. Also, some pretty fundamental things. What is your budget? You could do And you could do a short video for $1,000 up to many thousands of bucks. But think through how much you want to put to it. And by the way, it's not just the production, it is the distribution you have to think about. What's the storyline? Assemble a storyline. I would, and again, it depends on how you want to use your video. Let's say you want to have a 90-second or a 1-minute overview of your product. Think through how it's going to flow from the moment somebody clicks it on to the moment it concludes. Just jot it out. And again, that should be driven by what the intended audience and what's important to them. So when you want to put together content, don't think of what's important to you. That's not important. Think about what's important to your audience. What's a call to action? This drives me crazy whenever I see any content, video or otherwise. People put terrific content, but there's no call to action. It has to have some call to action. What do you want people to do? Do you want them to call you? Do they want to register for an event? Download something? Think through also, how will you be using this content, this video content? Video is, it just requires a lot of memory. It requires bandwidth. So think through how you're going to be distributing it. And keep in mind what Shakespeare said about wit. Brevity is key. Be brief. That doesn't mean it's going to be less expensive, because sometimes brevity requires more editing, and editing is, it's just time consuming and can get a little costly, but keep it brief. Okay, next slide, please. Finding content for video. Video comes in all shapes and sizes. And here are some things that you might want to consider. And this came from a site I really like called Social Media Examiner. You can find it online. And a lot of this comes from that, but I've added my 2 cents to it as well. I would certainly suggest you take a look at that site, and there's many others out there. There's no shortage of best practices on video. Okay, so let's look at what some of the things that they say. 1, screen recording. Now, I know we've all seen this. This is where you record your screen movements to, let's say, show how a user would navigate your product. And you could put a narration on top of that. My comment, yes, it's cost effective. You run the risk of boring or confusing people. If you don't have it well articulated, your movements, I would say you run the risk of boring people and getting them to bounce off. So I would urge you, if you're going to do this type of video, is to have it professionally produced and use animation. And there are plenty of sources for animation. And again, you can just go online, do a search, and a lot of them are offshore. They're in Asia, they're in Europe, but they're very cost effective and very good. Okay, reuse the recording from a live webinar appearance. So like today, I'm going to be on a webinar, and Jennifer Schaus is recording this webinar, and they're going to be reusing it. So think of it that way. You're going to have content, and presumably it's going to be important content to your intended audience. How are you going to repurpose it? And certainly social media is a good way of doing that. I would think the key here is editing. You want to take out the uhs and the ums, which I'm guilty of doing. But when this is re-editing, hopefully the editor will take those out. And shorter is usually better. People are real busy, and you just got to get to the point real quick. That's not to say you're going to lose impact. In fact, you'll have even more impact. And also, again, as I said earlier, include a call to action. So important. All right, Mallory, next slide, please. Finding content for the video. This is number 3. Interviews. Pretty self-explanatory. Let's say you want to get somewhat of a testimonial from a client, or you want to talk to a subject matter expert about a particular kind of area that your company is involved with, a researcher, for example. Well, interviews are very simple. They can be done with a wide range of people, customers, subject matter experts, employees. They can be cost effective. However, I urge the interviewer to do their homework, keep the editorializing to a minimum. Viewers want to hear the interviewee, not the interviewer. This is a common mistake. People who do the interviews have a tendency to want to share their opinion. Well, that's not the point of it. The point is to have the subject matter expert share their opinion. Also, I would suggest, if you can, use 2 cameras. It really does make the visual treatment a lot easier to watch. And again, editing is important. Number 4, series of short tips and tricks. These are about 1 minute or less and address a particular issue facing a specific audience. And again, I think this is a great way to relate to an audience and have them understand what they need to do to be involved in your product. Quality editing is important. That's a common theme you're going to see in all of these. Editing is so important. Be brief. And if you're going to put time into this, put time into editing. Number 5, this is something that they had recommended, using humor. I'm very cautious about that. In my video, I've never done humor. Not because I don't like humor, I do like humor, but humor is very subjective, and what one person could consider humorous, another person could be turned off by it. So I would really proceed with caution on that 5th one. All right, Mallory, next slide. Good resources. There are plenty of good resources out there. There's no shortage of them. Here's what I like to look at. Think with Google. They have a newsletter, I want to say, it comes out daily or very regularly. Really good. They also, you tell them that you're interested in video, and they'll put video articles up there. Social Media Today, Social Media Examiner, I think they're very good. Some social media sites that put up a lot of really good best practices: LinkedIn, YouTube, Vimeo. I certainly recommend checking all of that. Again, there's no shortage of good content that you could have out there. Okay, Mallory, next slide. Some thoughts to consider. Video is powerful, and as I said, I think it should be in everyone's marketing toolkit. A couple other things that I'd like to point out. Quality matters. Viewers will not cut you any slack. If it's not good, produced with good quality, high production value, they'll bounce out of your video in no time. I do recommend using a professional. Sort of the good news, bad news about video. The good news is that the cost of producing is declined. The bad news is that everyone thinks they're a videographer. Get a professional. Brevity is important. I already talked about that. Write out, a storyboard before you do anything. Use multiple cameras if you can. It just makes it visually more appealing. It adds more variety, visual variety. Use B-roll. This is video that often runs in the background as folks in the video are talking. You see this a lot on the news. And I think it's almost mandatory. There's a lot of B-roll for sale out there. That's pretty affordable. Some stuff is free. There's a lot of public domain video that you can look at. Repurpose your video. You can put it on your website. It does improve your search engine optimization. You can put it on social media. Every time you reuse a video, you are leveraging the expense of producing it. Then again, of course, as I said, set a budget and then add some, because no matter what you do, there are things that add to the cost. Mallory, that may be the last slide. Yes, it is. If you have any comments, questions, don't hesitate to contact me. I can be reached at svito@entrepreneurialgov.com. That's svito@entrepreneurialgov.com. 703-615-6787. Mallory, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you very much. I appreciate being on your webinar today.
Thank you, Stephen, for sharing your knowledge and insight today. Today's presentation has been recorded and can be found on our website or YouTube channel within about 48 hours. If you have questions about today's topic, please contact Stephen with the phone number or email shown on your screen. Thank you, everybody. This concludes the webinar.